we've been appointed by Nike to be their project architects or their local architects in South Africa. We needed to follow the concept playbook that Nike obviously develops for each of their facilities or their shops, and we were obviously knowing the way South Africa works, regulations, etc., etc. They needed someone on the ground, so we were really appointed from that perspective to carry out the project.
Correct. Paul, what did you do on this project?
I didn't do anything. Barry did it all. But, okay, so obviously, Emmanuel, how are you? Rashma, nice to meet you.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Rashma. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so from the photographs that you see on the screen now, obviously we're very proud of it in terms of the complexity of this fabrication. So if you look at it, it's a 12 mil plate that was used. You know, we had to spiral wind these and roll these things into the spirals. You know, 1.6 meters in diameter, and the center stringer is a very tight radius of about 600 diameter. 600 radius. So difficult to maneuver in the workshop, but we fully assembled that in the workshop. So it was assembled in 3 pieces. The trays themselves were bent out of 12 mil plates as well, and then they were filled in situ with concrete. So we tried to assemble in the workshop. It did take up a lot of space in the workshop. Then we dismantled the whole thing, and off it went to site in 3 pieces. So abnormal loads because of the size of the assemblies, and we had to make up special trolleys as well to maneuver it into the shop. I mean, from the site visit, Emmanuel, you would have seen that it's a very congested area to try and get the assemblies in. And then rigging proved to be a bit of a challenge. You know, very confined space that you had to work in. You know, you're obviously working in an operating area. I mean, the shop wasn't open yet, but it had been assembled in terms of the flooring was in, so we had to make sure that there was no damage to the flooring. And when you lift in a 4-ton components in sections, I mean, you have to handle it very carefully. So a lot of manual rigging. Everything basically had to be done at night, so there was very little interference with the rest of the mall's operations. And in the end, I mean, you know, we assembled it in situ and welded it in situ, and you know, unless you look very carefully, you wouldn't know where that side weld was, because it is an architectural feature, and we needed to make sure that after welding and after grinding and after painting, it was seen as seamless.
So, Rashma, just going back to the architecturally related questions, how, in your opinion, does this project illustrate the benefit of steel, and why steel? You know, what makes it appealing for an architect?
I think so. In steel, generally, from my perspective as a designer, I think that it's an element that has so many different facets to it, one of which it can become, if it's utilized well enough, it can become, and I don't know what's going on. I'm so sorry. Are you hearing my emails just go crazy at the moment?
No.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest challenge for us, Denise, was, you know, rolling to such tight tolerances and making it fit. You know, you can appreciate that these were rolled in 3 sections, spiral rolled, and in the end it all fitted. So we did have to do a trial assembly in the shop, make sure that it fits 100%, and then dismantle it, and then rigging it into position proved to be a challenge as well. So as I said earlier, a very confined space. You know, obviously you couldn't bring any mechanical equipment inside in terms of cranes or anything like that. So it was all done by manual rigging. After hours, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get it into position. But so we overcame it by, you know, coming up with some ingenious ways of rigging it into position. We had to make up a specialized trolley to get it in as well. and to maneuver it into the shop itself. And then then the rigging and getting in position and welding it proved to be a challenge, but we managed to overcome it.
Paul, a bit of a conceptual question for you. How does one shop test or do a trial on something that's going to get site welded? How will you know what's going to happen?
Yeah. So look, obviously you don't want to be trying to figure out any problems that you might have with the fabrication in the shop. Sorry, in the store itself. You want to sort that out in the workshop. So it was tried assembled in that it was only tack welding position. We would support it. We would tack weld it, and then once everyone was happy and we had the client go there and approve it, then obviously we took off the supports, cut the tacks, and it went to site.
Yeah,
So
I'm wondering how you deal with warping or other issues that might come up that you can't really test, let's say, ahead of time.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, you make sure that it fits the first time. Like I said, you don't want to go into the store and realize that there's a problem. So you can, in terms of individual components, they work well. The truth really comes in is once you put it all together, they've all got to work in harmony. And I think, Emmanuel, when you went to site, you would have seen that, you and I both struggled to find out where that side weld was.
Yes, that's impressive. That you managed to do the site welding without distorting or ruining whatever you had imagined would come together.
Right. Yeah.
Good. Okay, Rashma, you're back with us in the land of the living here, hey?
I am so sorry about that. The internet just dropped suddenly. So I'm not sure what you've heard and if I was just carrying on talking. So should I just start again from your question?
Yeah, we got to the part where steel is sexy if it's installed correctly or something to that effect.
That's what killed the internet. The comment.
That's what we couldn't handle it. From our perspective, it's exactly that, and we knew that we needed to achieve a certain singular element in the space, simply because the space was already so complex. It was an industrial feel and look and feel within the on that particular floor, which Nike required. So we needed a clean element. We needed an element that didn't have a lot of components. We didn't want to use many different materials altogether. So steel was the obvious choice for us. And obviously with the team, especially with CADCON, we achieved that spectacularly. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does answer my question. What are you most proud of on this project?
I'm going to leave that to Lene because she was on site, so sure. I'm going to ask her to answer that.
I think with the staircase, there was a lot of constraints, the position of it in the store and the actual loading and working with all the consultants and getting everybody on board with the design. And when we were back and forth trying to figure out how we will actually figure out the structure of the stair and get it built. And in the end, as a team, we really pulled everybody together and everybody in the end achieved exactly the design that Nike wanted, and it looks spectacular. This structural design of the stair didn't take anything away, in fact, and the fact that the stringer and the balustrade all was one component, and this is just seems like it's one element spiraling in the space.
Good.
So yeah, I think it was a massive challenge, and hats off to CADCON for sure. There were so many different aspects that needed to be considered. From an architectural point of view, the two floors sat above each other in a very strange way. They didn't sit exactly above each other, so we were limited to where we could position that staircase. Just so happened to be in the front of the store on the lower level, but in the back of the store on the upper level. So, and then the way we broke those slabs up, just keeping in mind that Rosebank, the zone, was built over phases, and it was really a mishmash of structure over time. Really brought it was quite complex. We had a lot of movement joints in different places, a lot of different elements, steel, concrete, all of that just all converging where we could punch it through that hole for the staircase as well. Then we had the cow train station coming back, vibrating this building as well, that needed to be considered. So, and then obviously everything comes down to costs. And then there was a huge push and pull from the client perspective. Vinay said that the team came together effectively at the end after looking at 3 different types of ways we could use steel. Obviously, Nike being the client at the end of the day wanted the sexy steel, rightly so, but we did explore all avenues with steel in order to try and get the costs down, because we had to figure out how we can get the values of Nike, which is authenticity and the fact that they push boundaries. And that's exactly what the stair does. It pushes boundaries. It's authentic for it in terms of its material, and try and just make sure that we achieve that. It might not have been in budget because of all the complexities that the structure would have been, but we could convince them that this was the right thing to do. And we're extremely proud that we managed to get it, even from the client's perspective. At the end of the day, you got to do it this way and it will pay off. And as you know, if you walk through Rosebank, there's so many interesting things to look at, and the way that they redeveloped that the zone is fantastic. But the staircase is a talking point. Trust me, I hear it all the time. It's definitely a talking point. And yeah, at the end of the day, extremely proud we pulled it off.
Good, good. Emmanuel, any comments from you before we close? Any comments or questions?
Yes, a question for obviously the architects, Rashma. Is there anything you would have improved on the Nike design?
Yes, I think there was one thing that we tried to get right, and that is actually there's 2 things. The one was try to get the balustrade a bit more seamless in terms of its handrail. So it would have been great to try and crimp the steel so that it's not adding another steel element. So we were a little bit disappointed from that perspective. We really did try and get it right, but the budget was really becoming quite strenuous because of the current situation with the building. The other was those additional posts that we had to put underneath the staircase. And that was really because, if I'm not mistaken, it was really because of the vibrations that we were experiencing, to make sure that the journey down did not become a bit of a scary element for those that have like motion sickness or something. So we had to, that was a little bit of a disappointment, but it is what the site was, and the site was dictating and cost was dictating. So it was not, I still think that as a design team, or as a team as a whole, we still, yeah, it didn't detract too much from the end result. But I would have liked those 2 elements to have.
Yes, I met with Paul and Lynn at the site, so I have seen it. It's a spectacular, very nice project. So well done.
Thank you.
Right. Anything that anyone would like to say in closing? Anything more you'd like to emphasize or just close off with? Paul?
Yeah, I think just Denise, from our side, I think when I approached Nike after the event and just told them that we had nominated this project for the Steel Awards, they were very excited about it, and you know, we had a glowing compliment from Pravesh Naidu, who's the store's construction manager. He had a lot of good things to say about the project. You know, he basically, you know, being a global brand, I think, you know, what makes us proud is that, you know, he said this is a unique staircase in the world. You know, in terms of a spiral staircase, in terms of being at the forefront of the store, and you know, working in a very congested area. And then, you know, with the store space and with the retail price, you know, you try and minimize the amount of space that you're taking up with the staircase. So a conventional staircase wouldn't have worked in this instance. So spiral staircase certainly works, and we were very proud to have been associated with that staircase.
Yeah.
Great.
Denise, you're still.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sure I'm on mute here. It's like Zoom bingo. You're always checking if you're on mute. Thank you all for your time. Thanks for chatting to us about your project. As project team members, you have already been preloaded. If you were on the project team list, you've been preloaded for the Steel Awards online platform. It's available at eventmobi.com/steel. You probably have received an email about it. Just double check your junk folder, because sometimes those mails go in there. But what you need to do is just go to that website, log in. To log in, just put your email address. It'll ask you to set a password the first time you go in. You don't need to log in to view the live stream or to see the projects or anything like that. But if you want to vote for your project, you do need to log in. And if you want to receive messages from other virtual attendees who might be interested in your project or have a question or have a query or something, maybe you'll get some business out of it. That's what we're hoping. It's part of the whole networking networking. And lead generation. So go and check the platform out. We're going to be live streaming on the 15th of October. The actual awards ceremony will be between 6 and 7. But between 4 and 6 p.m., what we're going to be doing is releasing little mini project profiles of all of the nominated projects. We've had to take a slightly different approach with Steel Awards this year because we're not able to have a physical sit-down event because of COVID restrictions and the numbers that we usually get. But we've had to shorten the program. So it's going to be finalists and winners during the 6 to 7. But every single project that was nominated will have some time during the day where it's going to be promoted, a little bit of a case study video of that project. So any additional material that you can send through to us for the project would be fantastic. If you've got any model walkthrough, little mini clip videos that you could send through, then that always does make it easier to promote the project. But other than that, thank you so much for your time and all the best for Steel Awards.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Denise.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Keep
Good
well.
luck.
Cheers.